The Blue Horizon Cafe was one of the few places in the Sol system where rank meant nothing. Admirals queued behind tourists for coffee, diplomats argued over desserts, and astronauts fresh off lunar rotations shared tables with businessmen who had never left Earth. Suspended in low orbit, the cafe's panoramic windows offered an uninterrupted view of the blue planet slowly turning beneath them, a sight that never seemed to grow old, no matter how many times one had seen it. Ambassador Ceres of the Illyri Concord had been staring at that view for nearly 10 minutes without saying a word. Draped in a deep crimson satin gown that contrasted beautifully with her smooth azure skin, she possessed the quiet elegance for which her people were known. The fabric flowed naturally over her graceful figure, while the elegant crests sweeping back from her head gave her an unmistakably alien elegance that humans nevertheless found strangely familiar. Across the table, her oldest human friend Daniel Carter noticed immediately that she hadn't touched her coffee. Ceres never came here to admire the scenery. She came because she claimed Earth brewed the only coffee in the galaxy worth drinking. Daniel wrapped both hands around his steaming mug and waited. After nearly 15 years of friendship, he had learned that Ceres never rushed a difficult question. Eventually, the ambassador exhaled softly and turned away from the window. "Daniel." Ceres hesitated, a remarkably human habit she had picked up after years among Terrans. "May I ask you something that has bothered me for a very long time?" Daniel looked up from his mug, and a knowing smile spread across his face. "Finally," he said with a quiet chuckle. "I was beginning to think you'd never ask." Ceres couldn't help but laugh. 15 years ago, she would have spent the next several minutes trying to determine what he actually meant. Now she simply shook her head. "One day," she said, "I'm going to learn how your species manages to hold any serious conversation." Daniel grinned. "You let me know when you figure it out." She looked back at Earth, its oceans glowing beneath the morning sun. "Why does nobody attack humanity anymore?" Daniel's smile lingered as he leaned back in his chair, gently swirling the coffee in his mug. "Before I answer," he said, "let me ask you something." Ceres gave a curious nod. "Go on." "If a predator found someone asleep on your world, what would it do?" The question caught her completely off guard. She blinked once, then let out a soft, amused laugh. "Attack, of course. A sleeping person is the easiest target imaginable. No predator would willingly pass up such an opportunity." She tilted her head, one elegant brow arching ever so slightly. "Why?" she asked, the corners of her lips curling into a playful smile. "Do Earth's predators politely leave sleeping humans alone?" Daniel's smile widened just a fraction. "They do." Ceres blinked. "They do?" She waited for the punchline, but it never came. Daniel simply looked back at her, his eyes steady over the rim of his mug. He wasn't joking. Ceres frowned, her brows knitting together as she searched his face for any sign of mischief. Finding none, she leaned forward, genuine confusion replacing the amusement she had worn only moments before. "But that doesn't make any sense." She shook her head slowly, trying to reconcile the claim with basic biology. A sleeping person is the easiest prey imaginable. They're unconscious, defenseless, completely unaware of their surroundings. Every predator knows that. Daniel slowly shook his head. "Not on Earth." Ceres searched his face again, almost hoping she'd somehow missed the joke. She hadn't. "Why not?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, folding his hands over his knee as the blue glow of Earth reflected faintly in his eyes. "They don't leave sleeping humans alone out of the kindness of their hearts," he said calmly. "They leave them alone because it is the smartest thing to do." She studied him for another long moment, trying to read the enigmatic expression on his face before finally folding her arms across her chest. "I don't follow." Daniel lifted one hand from his knee and reached for his coffee. He took a slow sip before returning the mug to the table. Through the panoramic window behind Ceres, Earth drifted silently beneath them, a brilliant marble of blue and white stark against the absolute darkness of space. Because Earth's predators learned at least two important lessons, he explained, holding up a single finger to punctuate the point. The first is simple. No meal is worth an injury. Ceres remained silent, letting the phrase hang in the air and allowing him to continue. A wolf with a broken jaw starves, Daniel said, his voice dropping to a measured storytelling cadence. A lion with a shattered leg never hunts again. A bear that loses an eye may not survive the winter. In the wild, even the smallest injury can become a death sentence. He glanced briefly toward the earth beyond the cafe's window before continuing. That's something most people misunderstand about apex predators. They don't survive because they're fearless. They survive because they're cautious. Every hunt is a calculation, every chase carries risk, every fight asks the same question. What if this meal fights back? He paused, taking another slow sip of his coffee. Predators avoid unnecessary risks. He let the simple statement linger for a moment. And humans are an unnecessary risk. Another brief silence followed. Sometimes the easiest prey becomes the most expensive. Ceres gave a slow, thoughtful nod. The principle itself was universal. Every apex predator she had ever studied, whether on Earth or on distant worlds, survived by avoiding unnecessary risks. That much was beyond dispute. She frowned almost immediately afterward. But that still doesn't explain humans, she said. Why would Earth's predators consider a sleeping human an unnecessary risk? Daniel smiled faintly, sensing that she'd accepted the first principle. Because that was only the first lesson. Ceres raised an eyebrow. The second? He nodded. The second lesson is even more important. For a moment, he simply watched Earth turning beyond the cafe's panoramic window before continuing. To a predator, humans are strange. Ceres tilted her head, waiting. We don't smell like other prey. We carry fire. We wrap ourselves in unfamiliar materials. We surround ourselves with light, noise, smoke, and sense no wild animal naturally associates with food. Instead of hiding in the dark, we light it up as if daring the wilderness to come for us. He paused, searching for the simplest way to explain millions of years of instinct. Most prey animals behave predictably. Deer bed down where they can detect danger. Rabbits retreat to their burrows. Zebras sleep standing, ready to run at the first sign of danger. Every species has evolved a strategy for surviving the night. They've been playing the same game with the same predators for millions of years. His gaze settled back on Ceres. Humans. A faint smile crossed his face. Sleep like we own the world. Ceres blinked. Daniel continued. We pitch tents in predator territory. We sleep beside campfires. We lie beneath the open sky. Even when something growls outside the tent, most of us simply zip it closed and go back to sleep. Sometimes we build cabins in the middle of nowhere and wonder why the view is so nice. He leaned forward slightly. To a wolf, a sleeping deer is still a deer. To a lion, a sleeping antelope is still an antelope. They know exactly how those animals will behave if they wake up. But a sleeping human, he let the sentence hang for just a heartbeat, might wake up screaming, might wake up fighting, might wake up with fire in its hands, or might wake up and become the hunter. Silence settled between them. So, sooner or later, every predator reaches the same conclusion. His eyes met hers. If something doesn't behave like prey, he allowed the words to linger. Perhaps it isn't. Ceres sat back slowly, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup as she replayed Daniel's explanation in her mind. After a long silence, she gave a reluctant nod. I think I understand. Daniel smiled politely but didn't answer, his silence holding a knowing weight. She noticed immediately. What? You understand the theory, Daniel said. But you don't believe it. Ceres hesitated, her gaze drifting. No. She glanced toward Earth again, wrestling with the logic. I understand why predators avoid unnecessary risks. I understand why humans seem unnatural from their perspective. But neither of those explains why predators would stop attacking sleeping humans almost entirely. Daniel's smile widened ever so slightly. That's because there was at least one more lesson. Ceres frowned, quickly catching the discrepancy. Wait. She pointed an accusing finger at him across the table. You said there were two. Daniel chuckled, entirely unbothered. I said there were at least two. She opened her mouth to object, paused as she mentally rewound the conversation, and then let out a defeated sigh. Technically, you did. I usually am. She rolled her eyes, a fond exasperation breaking through her seriousness. Don't ruin the moment. I'll do my best, Daniel teased. Ceres folded her arms once more, a small smile finally tugging at the corner of her lips. Fine. What's the third lesson? Daniel's expression softened. The playful banter disappeared in an instant, replaced by something much quieter, much heavier. The third lesson has nothing to do with the hunt, he said, turning his head to look through the panoramic window at the blue world below. It has everything to do with what happens after the hunt. Ceres waited, the shift in his tone holding her completely still. Imagine, Daniel said, that a wolf ignores every instinct we've just talked about. It decides the risk is worth taking. It finds a sleeping human alone in the wilderness. He paused, letting the isolation of the scenario sink in. And it wins. Ceres nodded, tracking the grim sequence. So the wolf eats. Daniel slowly shook his head. No. It eats. Once. Confusion spread across Ceres's face, but Daniel continued before she could interrupt, his voice dropping to a measured cadence. Humans don't think like most prey. If a deer escapes a wolf, it runs. If a rabbit survives, it hides. If a herd loses one of its own, the others move on. He looked back at Ceres, his eyes locking onto hers, and his voice dropped almost to a whisper. But humans ask a different question. Who did it? Ceres remained silent, a faint chill settling over her. And once we know the answer, we don't simply avoid it, we hunt it. Another heavy silence settled between them, drowning out the ambient chatter of the surrounding cafe. If a wolf kills a human near a village, people don't just warn their children, Daniel explained coldly. They organize. They track. They follow footprints through forests for days. They set traps. They return with spears, then bows, then rifles, and eventually, helicopters. Ceres could almost picture it, the terrifying, relentless mobilization of an entire species over a single casualty. The wolf wasn't just hunting one human. Daniel shook his head. It declared war on every human who cared about the one it killed. The cafe seemed strangely quiet now, the warmth of the orbit room suddenly feeling distant. Daniel took another slow sip of his coffee before speaking again, his tone carrying the weight of ages. Enough wolves died with broken jaws. Enough bears limped away from campsites. Enough big cats discovered that a sleeping human isn't a target, it's a consequence. He let the words settle, giving them space to breathe. Generation after generation. Not because every wolf remembers, but because the wolves that treated humans like ordinary prey rarely survived long enough to teach their young anything. Ceres stared through the cafe's panoramic window at Earth, but she no longer saw oceans, continents, or sprawling cities. Instead, she saw countless generations of wolves, bears, and great cats, learning the same brutal lesson over and over again. Some survived because they walked away from a sleeping human. Others didn't survive at all. Daniel rested his mug gently on the table. So Earth's predators didn't stop attacking sleeping humans because they became compassionate, he said quietly. They stopped because the danger was never the human they attacked. It was the humans who came afterward. He let the words settle. Evolution punished every predator that forgot what happened after the hunt. Ceres leaned back in her chair, her gaze drifting once more to the world beyond the cafe's panoramic window. For a long time she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost absent. So that's why. Daniel studied her over the rim of his coffee mug. She gave a slow nod. The predator doesn't fear the sleeping human. Her eyes remained fixed on Earth. It fears what happens after the hunt. Daniel smiled. Exactly. Silence settled comfortably between them. Around them, the cafe carried on as always. Cups clinked against saucers. Conversations drifted from nearby tables. Somewhere behind them, an espresso machine hissed softly. Yet, for Ceres, it all seemed impossibly distant. After several moments, Daniel reached across the table and tapped the holographic display embedded in its surface. A list of names materialized in pale blue light. Empires, hegemonies, pirate kingdoms, corporate dominions, warlords. Every one of them had attacked humanity. Every one of them had paid a price history never let them forget. They all made the same mistake, Daniel said quietly. They looked at humanity and saw another young civilization, divided, smaller than theirs, easier to intimidate. His finger drifted slowly down the list. Some bombarded our colonies. Some raided civilian settlements. Some believed that if they struck hard enough, killed enough people, destroyed enough homes, we would decide the price of resistance was too high. Ceres lowered her eyes. And they were wrong. There was always a response. Daniel nodded once. There always is. He stood and walked toward the panoramic window, resting one hand lightly against the glass as Earth revolved beneath them in silent majesty. His reflection looked back at him against the darkness of space. Attacking humans always costs more than it appears. He turned to face Ceres. The galaxy spent thousands of years trying to understand humanity. It studied our weapons. It studied our ships. It studied our economies. It studied our politics. He shook his head. It was studying the wrong thing. What every civilization eventually discovered was the same thing Earth's predators discovered long before them. His voice was calm, almost gentle. If something doesn't behave like prey. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Ceres looked from Daniel to the blue world below, and for the first time since arriving she truly understood. The countless wars, the fallen empires, the uneasy peace that now stretched across known space. A faint, knowing smile crossed her lips. Daniel returned the smile. On Earth, evolution taught predators not to attack sleeping humans. He watched the blue planet turn beneath them. In the galaxy, history taught everyone else. Ceres remained silent for a few moments before something Daniel had said much earlier resurfaced in her mind. She looked up. Wait. Daniel turned toward her. Did you say some animals sleep standing up? A grin slowly spread across his face. I did. She stared at him suspiciously. You're serious? As serious as I've been all afternoon. Ceres shook her head in quiet disbelief. I've spent 15 years studying humanity. Daniel chuckled. My dear Eleri friend. He gestured toward the blue planet beyond the panoramic window. Everything you've learned about Earth's wildlife is barely a drop in the ocean. He lifted his coffee mug with a smile. Perhaps. He took one final sip. Over another coffee.